Welcome to season 2 of Where Passion Meets Purpose. I'm your host, Jen Mentesana. Each week, I sit down with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and trailblazers who share their raw, real stories of perseverance, resilience, and building a life and business with impact. We talk about everything from entrepreneurship and family to purpose and living fully. My goal is to inspire you to start that dream, push through the hard seasons, and wake up every single day ready to live the life you were born to live with passion and purpose. Welcome back, everyone, to Where Passion Meets Purpose. Today on the show, I have my very good friend, Wei Houng here. He is the co-founder and CVO of Tecnologies. He is an amazing, incredible business coach, and he doesn't do that as much anymore. Now he's working with corporations, helping them use his technology to manage teams, and it's absolutely incredible what this company does. But Wei was my very first business coach, and I could not wait to have him on the show. I can't believe it's taken almost 2 years for us to connect, via Zoom when you know so much about me and vice versa. But something popped and said, you have to have Wei on the show right now. This is the time to have this conversation. So with everything going on with AI, with everything that's happening in technology and understanding human beings and the difference between AI and human beings in the workforce, we have so much to talk about. So without further ado, thank you so much for being here, Wei.
No, it's a pleasure to finally. I've been one of your biggest silent cheerleaders watching your journey over the last couple of years. So I get it. It's totally about timing, finding your bearings and everything. And then when the timing's right, the timing's right. And both of us are all about being, not having the ego to just like say, "Oh, I know when it's time." Sometimes we're just given the message, right? And then we pay attention.
Exactly. And we're going to dive into the message of what the message I got that you shared on social media that made me think, hey, I need to have this guy on my show. But before we go there, I just want to ask, because so much of what you talk about in the work that you do is, I say a lot, remembering who you are. And what you say is not who you are, but what you are. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, no, I love that question because that distinction, as you know, through the years of us having these conversations, the who versus the what, it empowers the individual to finally untether from undesirable nurtured patterns. If you look at when someone says, "This is who I am," most of the time when they talk about it's described through their experiences, what their culture has taught them, what their family has taught them, what society expects of them, what school expects of them. And then, due to the desire to just survive, we have adapted and we've attached and created this persona, this who of who we are, right? And it's no wonder that throughout life, people are constantly questioning, is this really who I am? What we provide through our patented technology is the what, okay? And when we say something like what, if we think about every time we ask, what is that? What we're looking for facts. We're looking for something grounded. What you are is dictated simply by science, physics, nature, what we are. The simplest way to describe the distinction between who and what we are is if you look around the room wherever you are right now and you look at everybody that you see, you'll notice that no two people, no two human beings look exactly alike. And that is actually what we help define. That actually dictates, nature has given us the clues to dictate what we are. Now, when you know what you are, that's when you can start to discern, because sometimes we've been nurtured to our nature, but sometimes we haven't been. And so the who could be very, very far apart from the what, or it could be just slightly off center, like a phase shift, right? It really does depend on what we've gone through in life. So that's what I would say, if to answer your question in a long-winded way, the who versus the what. Who is defined by life experiences, psychological parameters. What is immutable laws of science, nature, and physics.
That is so powerful and something that I don't think most people are talking about. I think, like, if you talk about these different strengths finders or other types of personality quizzes compared to what you do, it's really about asking, what you think you are or who you think you are, versus then that getting deeper into the behavior patterns, the things that come
Right.
from the innate human being. And so explain the difference between like a typical strengths
Sure.
finder or disc or any of those other types of programs.
Yeah, at this point in time, we are the only human assessment tool on the planet that's actually patented. And it was really interesting. It's a fun story. Dr. Zana, who's one of my other co-founders, who invented birth, we call her the birth mother of our algorithm, our technology, about 17 years ago, when she first approached the patent office, say, "Hey, I want to patent this algorithm." The first thing they said, okay, first and foremost, we have a question. Is this based on psychology or psychometrics? Because before you even begin, we will never, ever patent anything that's based on psychology and psychometrics. And that's very telling. And it's very interesting because the world leans so hard on it. They rely so hard on psychology and psychometrics on something that even the patent office will never patent any modality that's psychology based. Why? Because if you really think about it, our perspectives and our opinions are basically a part of our psychometrics. It's probably the most volatile side of human existence. Think about the last time you changed your opinion about something. You didn't change over the course of like weeks and months and years. You changed in an instant because some traumatic event happened. You changed in an instant because of the loss of a loved one. You changed something really quick, and all of a sudden your whole entire perspective of life changed. If you were to take a psychometric-based assessment, which is most of the assessments out there, the strength finders, they ask what your opinion is, your perspective on things. And based on that, they try to determine a behavior pattern that then defines who you are, right? Well, if you took it one day, and I still tell your story, Jen, about that one time in corporate America when you were having a bad day and you had to take that assessment tool. Remember you told me that story? And even though you were normally great, that assessment tool came back and they're like, uh-oh, what's going on with this one?
My boss basically said, I don't know what to do with you.
Yeah. And meanwhile, you were performing fine prior to that.
Yeah.
And that is the intrinsic flaw behind the psychometric tools that none of those other tools really kind of address and talk about. So when Dr. Zana responded, goes, oh no, our technology is based on physics and mathematics. And they say, oh, tell us more. Even then, it took her 7 years of what she calls going through the gauntlet of getting denied over and over again to finally, just over 10 years ago, finally getting approval for the patent and the algorithm because there was enough science and data and norms to back up the validity of the results in the data. And so through that time, she worked with like pro athletes, Olympians. She worked with Fortune 500 companies. She worked with the military even. She worked with the prison system to gather as much data as possible to get a broad spectrum of understanding of consistency of what it means to understand a human being. And so the biggest distinction is that psychology has essentially gaslit society to steer away from doing what human beings did to survive over the last 2 million years. This is not a new technology. This technology is built into our DNA, our ability to see each other and understand each other the way nature designed us to tribe, to understand without language. We were able to survive. Language has only been around for 150,000 years. What the heck did human beings do for 1.85 million years on Earth? We survived by seeing each other, understanding what we see in nature. Heck, nature still does this. Human beings stop because we use language to try to kind of like navigate the world. I guarantee if we had language 2 million ago, we'd probably be extinct by now. The thing is, the rest of nature still honors and goes by the laws of nature to physically and physics to see each other. Every leaf, the design and the shape plays a specific role. Every blade of grass, the different types of grasses, they're shaped and designed physically to play a specific role. Human beings, the way we are naturally shaped and designed physically, plays a specific role in contributing to our characteristic traits, what motivates and drives us, the nuclear forces that create stability in our ecosystem. All that, nature has given us all of that information. And 150,000 years ago, we steered away from that. What we've done is now we've taken the same technology we used to survive for the last 2 million years, but instead of using grunts and clicks to explain it, we now have the powerful tool of language for precision, to add precision to what we already know how to see in each other.
Oh my gosh, it's just fascinating. I mean, the way you describe it, it's like you bring nature and natural causes along with this incredible technology that humans are able to put together and marry it to create this result. I have to share, I mean, this must have been 6 or 7 years ago when John and I, my husband and I, first came to you and started using this technology with you, and you had us take the assessment. And it was fascinating to me because when we were going through a challenging time, that was when we were kind of hitting friction, and our gifts and talents and our natural abilities were not lining up because we were having friction and we couldn't kind of ebb and flow with each other. So all of a sudden we were friction. You helped us understand how we are uniquely wired so that we could start there to move forward and get through that challenge in our business.
Right. Right.
It is so fascinating. And so how do you do that currently with companies or individuals or people that you work with in your workshops? How do you do that to help kind of bridge a gap on a team or in a situation?
Well, I mean, it's leap years in terms of advancement since you and I, because back then when you and John were in my office, we were doing it manually. We were still like printing out reports and data and handing each other and drawing pictures.
Yes. I remember those reports and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to decipher this. And I'm like, I do not get this stuff, but you're going to explain it to me. I know.
And it's such a cool thing to hear, and thank you for sharing that, because it's always nice to hear how this validates the importance of understanding that between two human beings, there's always this unique strategy of success that can be created, and it's not the same strategy you would have with anybody else. It is only between the two of you. And what's beautiful about what you two were willing to embrace is that, okay, whatever we did in our past relationship is not even valid anymore. What we need to look at is the unique dynamic of you two being together this way and how we can create the best strategy for success by first understanding the unique similarities and the unique differences between you two, where you guys actually can meet and where you guys can actually have to understand that there's strengths and weaknesses in both ends, right? Where it is right now, 2 years ago, I think I told you about last year, is that we pivoted hard. Finally, I got permission from Dr. Zana. We pivoted hard to move to an app and SaaS model, which afforded us the ability to create a freemium version. So now every human being can access it. Because as you know, prior to that app, our technology was only accessible to people who could afford it. It was to some very expensive, especially on the corporate level. And so that was one of my biggest frustrations when I joined Dr. Zana and Lisa and everybody on the team. I said, why are we making this so hard for the rest? Every human being needs access to this. This is what's going to save humanity. This is what's going to make human beings and the stewards of the planet that we're supposed to be. This is going to make the world a better place. And she goes, well, you know, it's a business and everything. I was like, okay, well. Finally, we now can have a version of it that gives you the full result, and in a way where you can continuously refer back to it. And on top of that, which goes back to, we created our own proprietary human-op authentic intelligence engine. And I call it authentic intelligence instead of artificial, because the intelligence is based on that user, that human being's unique nature of self. Meaning, if you've ever wanted the most compatible, supportive person in your pocket by your side, that's what this technology is. It is designed to make sure every single step of the way, whatever question you ask, to guide you to your truest nature, authentic self, instead of giving you some out-of-the-box internet solution. It notices what you're all about. So you don't even have to guess anymore, because we forget. We're fallible. We're human. We sometimes forget what we are. And then Hi, that's, we call it affectionately Hi, H-A-I. Hi will come in and say, oh, by the way, remember, this is your driver. Remember, this is the time of the day where this trait is most prominent. Try to reschedule this over here, because you can now connect your calendar to the app now, and it can actually help you optimize your day. There's so many different layers. This new version that we just come out, it's everything that I wanted to be able to do for humanity, and now it's finally like good enough that I can say, okay, it's out there. Let's do this.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing because I mean, I was probably one of your, I made a joke, dumb blonde, that I can't really understand technology. I'm not really a real blonde, so it doesn't count. But I
Well, I'm Asian, so I'm blonde all over. So,
yeah, there
but
you go. Yeah, so I just was like, okay, I know I'm a smart human being, but this is just not making sense. But when you use the interface of an app, all of a sudden, not only does it have like, easier access, more affordable, but it's just the interface is easier for those who
yeah.
aren't tech gurus.
Yeah, you just tap and it tells you what it is. This new version, Hi, is so interactive with you. You just tap whatever aspect that's authentic to you. And if you forget what that is, Hi will immediately tell you, by the way, this is your regal trait. It's where the natural born leader lives. It's where benevolence lives. And it's where you are right now in this time of the day. So delegate versus just doing, because you're supposed to be delegating at this time.
Yeah,
Those little things that it will actually remind you of.
that is so cool because, okay, so let's dive in a little bit to this conversation about AI because we were going to talk about this anyway. But now that you bring this up with this high, how it I mean, you used, I don't know what verb you used to explain, but basically it reminds you of the most authentic version of you versus if you use Claude or chat, you're having to kind of like go in and say, tell it who you are, but that's based on a perception of how you're feeling in that moment versus what the assessment has told it about you.
Right. Exactly. And Hi will put its foot down. If you try to manipulate Hi to go against your nature, Hi will prioritize the most optimal version of you and say, no, that goes against your nature. I highly recommend, and obviously you can still do it even though Hi tells you, because it's still at the end of the day just a tool, right?
Yeah.
We can give you a hammer and say, use that on the nail. It's like, no, I refuse. I use this screwdriver. Okay, fine. But here's a hammer, right? And so we put massive guardrails in place, and there's so many security mechanisms. It's built on a blockchain backbone, everything. So it's super secure because we know how valuable this data is for the user. And so, yeah, it is designed that even if you try to go against your nature, it will fight as much as an interface can to keep you from doing that. And on top of that, it will remember.
I have personally experienced with chat specifically, and I use both chat and Claude. I haven't, there's certain things I use one for and certain things I use the other for. But one thing I have noticed is that if I get too deep into the weeds with it, sometimes I'm pulled out of alignment because it's sending me what, like you said, it's searching the web for the answers that may not actually be the right thing for me versus
Exactly.
my true innate knowing that knows what's right for me. If I'm pulled out of alignment, and that can happen through many different ways. Sometimes I'm on social media and I get pulled out of alignment, right? And then I'm thinking in my head too much and I'm not really connected to what it is that I do versus who's doing what out there in what way. And I can get really easily pulled out of alignment. So I love this tool because this is the difference and the unique aspect that you won't get with chat or Claude or whatever other tool you're using out there. That is so cool. So I'm going to ask you one more AI question, and then I want to get more into the deeper stuff. So you brought something up on your social media the other day. I don't remember if it was what I was on Facebook, IG, whatever it was. And you shared a reel talking about how you thought that it was absolutely ignorant that companies are using AI to replace human beings. And I may be sorry if I quoted you wrong, but the idea was that you were saying,
No, you made me sound nicer just now.
okay, good. Well, I was hoping to not butcher it, but I have teenage kids, and I know a lot of people who have kids in college and going out to the workforce. And the talk out there is that it's going to be impossible to find a job because AI is taking over all the entry level jobs. And to that, you say,
well, then they're missing the opportunity there. If they believe that AI is taking the entry level, that's because AI has simply raised the bar of capability of where entry level is, which means it's up to people to raise their value. what I'm really excited about what AI is going to do, it's going to force academia to finally fix things. Our academic system is so archaic. It's memorize, regurgitate, memorize, regurgitate. What is AI? Memorize, regurgitate, memorize, regurgitate. But it does it even better because it now observes patterns. AI has basically replaced what academia has gotten lazy about in teaching our kids. And so it's no wonder that the current graduates and everything, they're like, oh no, what am I going to do? AI is going to replace me. Yeah, it's not your fault because academia has basically trained you like an AI bot. Now, the opportunity here is this. They are graduating at such an amazing time because in one weekend, if you let go of your belief system that it's hard or they're not good at tech or whatever the case may be, you can literally become so well versed in AI if you are truly letting go of those belief systems and just like go all in with it and learn it, that you can raise your own bar of what your entry level capabilities are. And I'm encouraging every human being, instead of like the stupid graduation, yeah, AI sucks, down with AI. Well, that's not going to make it go away. It's like, it makes me laugh all the time when people go and they what do they do when they pull out poster boards and they protest, right?
Protest, yeah.
Like, you're still in the wave pool. You're not turning off the waves. You have to get out of the pool, go to the wave machine, and turn it off. Okay, and to do that, you need to have the wherewithal to understand how to get out of the pool, right? And so one of the ways is get out of that pool. Everybody jeering and sneering at AI. Go learn AI and use it as a tool to augment what you already know and take it to the next level. Because at the end of the day, the last thing, I don't think anybody wants to graduate from school and just be a regurgitory machine. Nobody wants that. There's no value in that. Your passion doesn't lie in that. Your passion lies in the ability to say, hey, now that I've learned this, what can I create now? What can I go out and do and flex my natural passions and abilities to do? No longer do we have to choose a job over our passion. And if people are saying, well, I don't have anything I'm passionate about, that's the intrinsic challenge, not the part that you can't find a job. It's the part that you don't have a passion. But everybody does. Somewhere down the line, you've got steered away from thinking that you don't have a passion. And that's part of the intrinsic flaw
Or
of the
that your
academic
passion
system.
isn't a priority.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the real issue. And why I do the work that I do is because I believe that, we can't really succeed in life if we're not tapping into our passion in some
I remember those
capacity.
conversations we've had.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is all coming from work with you, Wei. I mean, at the end of the day, you were the one that we just talked offline before we hit record, that you were the one that planted that seed that was kind of still in the back of my mind for a year or two until it kind of came to the forefront. And I said, all right, it's time, get off, it's time to get on the horse and get going. So
I know.
I'm
I was like,
grateful
the
for
whole
you.
time I was like, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? And then finally, when I started seeing the stuff come out on social media, and I was like, yes. That's when I started like, I probably should have sent more emojis, but there were plenty of emojis I didn't send of me just clapping and going, yes.
I love it. Well, I know you're cheering me along the whole time, and yes, you planted the seed. But this is the truth of the matter is, I've told you I'm raising now teenage boys, and they're using AI in homework and everything else. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, they're cheating. They're this." I'm I'm so grateful that they're learning how to use this as a tool. And instead of using it in replacement of learning, using it to learn, right? And to learn. And so finding, and I was just having my son look into this as he's starting an internship this summer. And he's like, what do I tell him that I want to do? And I said, what are you passionate about? And, no one ever asked him that before about a job. Like, he's passionate about baseball. He's passionate about his friends. He's passionate about, fishing and all these things. But what are you passionate about? Like, what do you care about? What are you interested in? And so we had to really have that conversation. And then I said, now go use AI and start plugging in things. And he came up with this really cool idea because he's taking this entrepreneurship class, and he had to come up with a business idea for this entrepreneurship class.
Love it.
And I said, so now plug into AI all the things that you're interested in and say, how do I create a business around my passion for these things? And it spit out, create an app for people who have passion, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Simple as that. And that is how you use AI as a tool
Yep.
for an individual, right?
Yep.
So getting back to this idea about passion, the show's called Where Passion Meets Purpose. And I talk a lot about the gifts and talents that people have from birth, the breadcrumbs that lead us toward fulfillment. Um, what, from your perspective, and I think you've probably witnessed this a lot being a business coach previously, what happens when someone spends years living against their natural design? The map that the assessment gives you, they're living in a place that's completely opposite of what their
Yeah.
true nature is. What
Yeah.
happens?
It's exactly what you were saying. The passion wanes, it disappears. The attraction towards purpose becomes dulled, right? And then more and more, and that's why, I mean, you're right. I've seen a lot of it. People will come in and they have, on the surface, really successful business, really successful life by societal standards. And I've had multiple founders and CEOs and everything come in and they're standing at my doorway. They're not even stepping fully in yet. And they're saying, "Wait, I have no reason to be unhappy." I said, "Okay." And this is a summation of what a lot of them, they say it all in different ways, but it's basically this, right? It says, "And yet here I am darkening your doorway." I said, "Because you realize you're succeeding to someone else's definition of success and not yours." He goes, "Yeah, that's a good way to put it." But I don't know what my definition is. And thus begins the journey, right? Of rediscovering self. And so what I love what it is that you're doing with your kids is that you're helping them make sure that they stay connected to that. One of the things that our technology is so good at facilitating is the pathway towards getting in touch with that purpose. Because you think about it, where passion meets purpose, I would venture to say that without passion, there is no purpose. You can't have a purpose in life. You can't lean into and live life on purpose if you're not passionate about it. So when passion doesn't meet purpose, you don't have either.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's the point of the name, right? It's
Right,
like
yeah, right.
that intersection between passion and purpose is the path forward because you have to have both,
Right.
right? Yeah,
So
it's
we look at
and using those gifts and talents that you're
Mhm.
innately aligning those things together is the path forward.
Exactly. And so now we go back to the most simplest form of how to understand this without language, right? When you are, if for those who are listening to this and say like, okay, yeah, I've been passionate before. I felt like I've been on purpose before. Okay, great. Let's remember that time and let's try to describe it in as simplest term as possible. Let's not get too flowery or clever with the words and get fancy and holistic and spiritual. No, let's talk about it simply. What does it mean? It lights you up. It gets you out of bed every single day. You feel energized when you're doing it, living it, right? Well, our technology identifies on a nuclear force level, the motivational drivers that will keep you lit up every single day. Now, even if you can't define what that passion and purpose is, but if you start living to the nature of yourself that lights you up every single day, doing activities every single day, exactly what you took your son through when you were going through, like write down all these things, right? It will eventually blossom into almost organically your life's purpose just by living in a way that honors your true nature of self.
Yes, and I think this is the thing ultimately why you and I do the work that we do, right? Is because we truly know that this is how to heal the world. That if every person on the planet can find that for themselves, we could all be living on an energetic level that would be beyond anything that we have ever imagined. Or at least I imagine it, but it feels out of touch because so many people are operating in these shoulds and these identities. And the reason why that guy
In the
walked in
Matrix, I
and
call
the
it the
Matrix,
Matrix.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like one of these things where once you get yourself out of that and you see what's possible, you're like, oh my gosh, it's like shaking every human being. I mean, I think my thing
Mhm.
right now is I love my community and I love the amazing people that are in it, but I see people walking around in this identity robot suit. And I want to shake them and be like, I know you think you're doing all the things to create the life you want, but you're not.
Yeah.
You're living in an identity that's someone else's expectation that you bought into. And until you get to that thing inside of you that your assessment helps find, you aren't really living. And that's at the end of the day what it's all about. What have you seen in the people, the companies, the business owners, whatever that you work with and do this assessment? What kind of transition have you seen happen after they've started to use this technology?
Oh my goodness. Where do I even begin? I've been doing it for so long now. I've seen so many. It's a broad spectrum. I mean, you and John are one example. And also, what I've also seen is like Liz in our office right now, she has joined. What we're doing is we're creating a modern day village. So it's like people who are wanting to be part of a community, to be out of the matrix and untethered from what the construct of reality that doesn't serve them anymore. And so the first thing that it had done, it had saved her marriage, because she saw her husband completely light up, because he's a Chinese national. And so he wasn't born and raised here, but for the first time ever, he felt seen, heard, understood in a way that his own wife couldn't articulate until she had access to the technology. He lit up in that one conversation that we had of me just sharing his results with him, because he came into our office and I said, oh yeah, let me tell you what I see. And he goes, oh my God, yeah, that's exactly right. And then from there, Liz totally shifted the way she approached her husband, because she did realize it's not that they didn't get along, she just didn't understand what he was.
Yeah.
She was trying to fit him into this who, right?
Yeah, I think that is the hardest thing too, is that, and what I've noticed in my own relationship with John, we've been together 23 years now. And who we showed up as, right? And I think this is so common when couples get together, who we show up as when you're in that raw state of love, right? You're just open and pure and everything's
Yep.
kumbaya and you're like feeling all the feels and everything's great and you kind of are at your best, if you will. And then as life goes on and all these things happen, you start to build these walls, these little, they're so subtle in the beginning, and they're these little walls that are protecting you from whatever situation happens or what this person said or how you feel about something or whatever. And eventually that wall becomes so thick you don't even see each other anymore, really. And I think this technology is the thing that kind of like cuts through all of that and helps you really see that person again for who they truly are, and not from all the crap that you've experienced with them over the last 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. There's a lot of variables at play. I mean, one, every season of life, we subtly shift and change. Every interval of life, which we also measure, there are also significant shifts and changes. Adulthood between 43 to 52, and yes, true human adulthood is actually 43, as you and I know, right? And then actually that whole span right there is one interval versus the midlife transformations, which is between 34 and 40. So every interval, human beings, like nature, will go through seasons, and as such, the fluctuations will affect the way we show up for each other and in the world in general. And at the same time, when we first get together as a couple, life hasn't happened to us as a couple yet. So we still don't see how the other person responds when life happens. Then we start to see the full spectrum. Then we start to see what latent triggers are still within each person. That wall that you're talking about is akin to like a landmine field, right? That then starts to develop and grow between two human beings. And when human beings get to a point where they're just like almost walking on eggshells, what they've done is they trained each other on how to navigate each other's field of landmines without setting the other person off. Not realizing that in a loving relationship, you're supposed to set those landmines off so the other person can learn how to diffuse them. But our society does a terrible job, and in all typical relationship thing, they teach you how to be an expert at navigating the landmine field, how to avoid triggering and setting somebody off, at least the therapy community and stuff like that, in the psychological community.
Yeah.
Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but at least it's better than nothing, right? And what that doesn't do, though, is get to the root cause. The root cause is this. Those triggers, if your partner doesn't trigger you, somebody else eventually will, as long as it's still there. I think what's one of the best use cases of this technology as a couple is to help each other identify what those triggers are that were there before you guys got together. And because you guys trust each other, it's easier to set off. But once it's set off, we say, where did I learn that? How do I get to the bottom of that? How do I diffuse that in the safety of this relationship so that nobody else in this world could ever set me off again that way? It's just a metaphor for something else, right? That wall then starts to come.
Yes, and then the wall starts to come down. But you have to feel safe to actually be able to go there within that. But the technology is kind of like it's like you have this roadmap that helps guide you through it as you're dealing with it, right? Oh, that's why this person is whatever the term is going through this feeling right now based on what I just said, because they are, feeling something that's innate in them. And I just love this. It's such good stuff. How would you tell someone today if they feel stuck and they're unsure of what their next chapter looks like? They're in a place in their life, because a lot of people that are listening to this show are entrepreneurs, and they're people that kind of are on the path. They're doing their thing. They think they're on the right track, but there's a lot of people who are out there who are listening who aren't yet taking that leap. They're starting to think about it. You talked about the intervals, and you talked about like I know I'm now 55, so I'm in the legacy post.
No, you're the pay it forward. You're in my interval. We're in the same interval where we're
pay it forward. Okay, there
all
you
of
go.
it pay forward. That's why you're all about giving,
interview.
packaging your wisdom, paying it forward, legacy. What's my footprint? What am I going to leave behind? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so I'm in that space right now where that's all I think about all day long. But there are people who are still in that interval of like understanding who they are as an adult, and remembering who they truly are, and trying to get to that place of feeling like themselves again because they've been living this identity for so long. So what question do you think people should ask themselves to get back to that point, to who they were designed to be? Or do you just say, go find the app, download it, and go?
I mean, it's free now, so you might as well go get it for free. I mean, yeah, obviously we have a model because we are a business, so you can subscribe and get deeper access to a lot more information. But the basic information, I wanted the free version to be able to change lives regardless. And so the free version alone is enough data that most human beings basically probably have ever gotten in their whole entire lives. I think one of the first things that, people need to be willing to ask themselves is that you may instinctively, when you hear the results, it's not going to be something like, oh my God, I didn't know that. It's more like a gut punch. It's like, oh, that's what I thought. I always knew that, but now I have a language about it. And I think I think the biggest mistake that people do when they first get this data, they immediately either try to share it and get the people around them to change for them so they don't have to change themselves. And it might work for a little bit, but that's a long way around to get to you where you want to go. The fastest way, and even from a business standpoint, as an entrepreneur, I've seen this open up prosperity channels on so many levels. You and I've had many conversations about this. The more authentic you are, the greater power you have to attract what it is that you want, to create a conduit of flow into your life for success on every level of life. Because we are conduit. We are actually the beacon. You are your own beacon for everything in life. You are your own tuning fork for everything that you want to attract and repel. And if you are out of alignment, you're going to attract what you don't want, repel what you do want, and that's just nature. That's frequency and harmonics at work. That's physics, that's universe, everything. I mean, they've done so much work around it. Google it, it'll tell you everything, right? So what I would encourage people to do is when you first get your data, it's free, go to humanup.com. Just focus on you. Become the best, most optimal, authentic you that you can. And just observe the ripple effects of everything in life, because there are micro decisions that your unconscious mind will start to make when you are in full alignment that you may not even be aware of. And yet at the same time, it will be micro decisions that will lead you down the path that is most optimal for you. just by focusing on you. I tell people when people say, "Oh, we want to change the world too. We want to do big things like you." It's like, you know what? The best thing you can do, and this is the nodal impact. You and I think I've shared that with you, nodal impact, right?
Yes.
Every human being is a node. And if you just, for lack of a better word, vibrate at this higher frequency that is just the most optimal, authentic frequency, your existence in the world will create a ripple effect. It's even bigger than a butterfly effect. Every person that you come across, you're going to leave this residue of quantum entanglement that will then propagate out your authenticity to create, then orchestrate this beautiful world around you to have things unfold. Now, it may sound a little bit on the esoteric side, but I've seen it happen way too many times. And then when people ask me, I said, you want me to break this down to quantum physics and science and wave frequency and wave dynamics? I can tell you. Or you can just experience it yourself. Either way.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the best ways I've ever heard anyone talk about manifesting, right? Like at the end of the day, it's manifestation is basically being yourself and emulating that out into the world, and then everything comes back to you because you're in alignment with what you truly want as
Yeah.
opposed to what you think you want, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that people, I wouldn't say argue about, question, is this real? Well, there's quantum physics and there's science and there's data that explains that this is real,
Mm-hmm.
but go experience it for yourself. Get in alignment, get connected with who you truly are and what motivates you, what drives you, your passion, your purpose, all the things we've been talking about. And you will start to begin to create that life.
Yeah. I mean, the one of the best ways is if those who live by the ocean, right? And maybe this is an exercise you could do with your people one day. Wave theory, quantum theory exists right in front of us on the ocean, okay? When we do work on ourselves and we focus on authenticity, every cell in our body, as long as we're alive, there's an output of frequency. There's heat frequency, there's energy frequency, there's signal, there's sound, all kinds of frequency are emanating from us. What they have found and measured that those who do a lot of personal development, personal growth, and are staying in alignment are authentic. One, authenticity they measured with a Faraday cage, it actually outputs greater frequency energy than love itself. They always thought love was the greatest output. Authenticity on any level, on any emotion, actually bypasses that by significantly, multiple times. And so when that authenticity is smooth, is consistent, think of this, because I experienced this when I was at the ocean one time when I was a kid. I put one of my favorite toys floating in the water. It was a calm day on the ocean, so there's not a lot of big waves. And the waves you could see all the oscillate. It carried my toy so far out, my parents couldn't even get it back from me. And I was crying. It's like I lost my toy. But then I learned something from that. And so the next time I went to the beach, I brought like a boat, a little floating boat, right? And I said, I'm going to do the same thing because now I'm going to send this boat out, right? But that day, the waves were choppy. The waves were big, and I kept trying to do it, and it kept throwing it back at me. At one point, I was crying because the boat got thrown back so hard it hit me in the head, right? And then years later, I thought about that and said, oh my God, it's in nature already. When we do the work, it's calm waves. And think about what happens when you send out your intention of what you want, what you desire, okay? And you put it on a calm oscillation wave of frequency, it doesn't hit any resistance. It just keeps going out. And if you keep that calm frequency, whatever comes back has an easy time coming back to you based on what you want. Most of us are being impacted, watch too much social media, watch too much news, and it creates jagged waves of just pulling us in a million directions, and we're fighting to try to stay true to ourselves if we're not doing the work. Then when we send something out, it doesn't go anywhere because it hits that first spike and then it just comes back at us, like the boat hitting me in the head.
Yes.
That's what happens when people struggle. That I'm doing all this manifesting, I'm meditating on it. It says, but are you doing the work to align yourself to your true authentic self?
Right. That's the real key. And I'm going to touch on something you said before when you were talking about how people, clients, whatever, come to you and say, "Oh, I want to make an impact like you. I want to, do this." they have to find what that is for them. Like,
Hmm.
it's one thing to look, and I think this is a thing, like on social media, everybody's looking out there and there's gurus and they're talking about this and they're doing all the things and you're like, "Ooh, I'm going to do that." But when you're not being authentic and you're doing it their way because you think that's the right way, you're in your head, you're not in your being.
Hmm.
You can't exude that authenticity, then that's not going to come back to you the same way it might to the person who's doing it. So you have to find your thing, your gift. Like, for
Right.
me, when we first did the assessment, you made it very clear what I was supposed to be doing. And you were like, the parts of the business that you're involved in right now are not serving you or the
No.
business. Yeah. And you were like, painted the picture. You need to be out there. You need to be speaking. You need to be connecting. You need to be communicating. You have, I forget, aesthetic sensibility, whatever the
Yep.
terms were at the time.
Yep.
All these
It
things.
still
And I
is
was like,
aesthetic sensibility.
yeah. So all those light bulbs went off, right? And I was like, yes, that is me. Why am I over here trying to figure this out? I'm not this detail oriented, like, doing spreadsheets and stuff. That's not me. And why am I wasting my time trying to do something that isn't in my gifts and talents and alignment? And that's really, at the end of the day, all we're talking about is figuring out what that is so we can get in alignment, so we can put all of that energy out there to create what we're meant to be doing on this planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you own your passion and your purpose and what's in alignment with you, then you'll also reveal the gap of what you need to bring into your world to fill. We're somehow convinced that, because we're human beings and we can learn and train to be doing anything, even against our nature, because we're so adaptable, which is a beautiful strength of ours and also a pro and con at the same time, is that we're taught that, oh, there's a gap right there. Oh, I'll just do it. It's like, no. You stay in your lane, identify what the gap is, and now with technology, there is absolutely no excuses for someone to be doing something that goes against their nature.
100%.
Use an agent, use an AI agent, cover that gap, spackle that gap for now until you have the wherewithal and the means to. I just talked to someone who was just starting something up, and young girl, and she was like going, I don't have the money, I need investors. For what? Do you have a Claude account? And she goes, yeah, that's all you need right now. You need to produce an MVP. You need to identify the gaps that go against your nature. Use an agentic AI to fill that gap for now. When you generate the revenue, then you hire somebody if you still need to.
Yeah.
Right?
One of the things I remember thinking a year or so ago when I first relaunched, I mean, it's been almost 3 years now, but when I first relaunched my coaching practice, like stepped into the self-development space again, I thought there's no way I'm going to learn social media as fast as it's growing. And there's no way I'm going to do this. But you know what? I committed to learning. And I said, you know what? I don't have the money to hire a social media specialist right now. It's me, myself, and I'm going to figure this out. And I'm not the best at it, and I don't need to be the best at it. I now know how to use AI to support that so that I can do the things, and it takes me less time and all those things. When I first started out, I wasn't using AI. It took me forever to learn how to do a reel and edit it and do all the things. Like, it took me forever to just, like an hour I was taking to post something. It was ridiculous. But,
Yeah.
now I look at it and I'm like, but I did it. Like, I figured it out. And I think that's the nature of entrepreneurship, is you kind of do have to wear all those hats in the beginning. But I focused on the parts of myself that were my gifts, and I did the best I could with the other stuff. So I focused on the message, on speaking, and the things that I was good at when it came to social media, and I let the other stuff, the technology, it wasn't perfect, but I got it out, right? And I think that's what we need to learn, is don't get so caught up in the weeds with the things that you aren't good at. Use technology, automate, delegate or eliminate is what I like to say. And, just focus on the things you're good at and you will build. Sorry, I have to ask you a tough question before we wrap up. And honestly,
Sure.
not a tough question for you. But I think this is a question that I'm totally comfortable with you being honest and sharing the answer. And it's only something that, you and I and John are privy to. But when you worked with us during the pandemic, and when our restaurant was really struggling, like really struggling, and we had to close our Hermosa Beach restaurant, and we had poured $500,000 into it, and it was closing, and we were really struggling. Looking back at that time, What did you see in us that we couldn't see in ourselves? Because when you're going through something like that, and you knew all of the things that the assessment had told you about us, but we weren't in the mindset to be able to see it from ourselves. What did you see in us? And why is it so much easier for others to see in us what we can't see in ourselves in the moment?
It's kind of like this. You've gone swimming before, right? Have you, when you were learning how to swim, did you ever find yourself underwater for a little bit too long, a little bit too deep, and you're like, oh my God, I need to get out of here. In that moment, what was the only thing you cared about?
Yeah, getting my hand up to touch the side.
Or to get air, right?
Air, breathing.
Because you
Yeah.
thought for a quick moment you might drown. So in that moment, when you're underwater and you're drowning, you're not thinking about your parents. You're not thinking about your kids, or you're not thinking about anybody else, really. In those intense, extreme moments, all you care about is getting your head above water. So when human beings are in survival mode and they're underwater, they can't see. It's like the parents in the Charlie Brown. I mean, they want, want. That's all you see of. I mean, if you look from underwater, outside of the water, there's people there, but you don't know what they look like. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they're saying. They could be screaming, but you can barely hear it. All you care about in that moment is how do I get my head above water so I don't drown? And that's why a lot of times people can't hear what people outside of the goldfish bowl looking in are seeing. What I do want to acknowledge, what both of you did in spite of that, you guys still listened. You still listened in the best way you could and did the best you could with what was offered to you as a resource from me and everything else that you had going on. John went and did what lit him up in that moment for that time being to help kind of patch the gaps. You stepped in and kind of reframed the reason why you were doing the certain things in the business so that you could present a better position for your aesthetic sensibility. We did the best we could during that time, and heck, during the pandemic, and I still tell this story, you guys had your best month in the middle of the pandemic because you never gave up and you continued to pivot and lean into what you were good at, which is making those connections, presenting, serving the community, doing all those things. And it paid off, right? I still remember saying, oh, thank God, Wei, you told us to do social media, because that's what helped got the word out during the pandemic for those kids. I still talk about those kids to this day to people. Of all one of the most impacted industries in the pandemic, and yet you guys had your best month ever.
It was insane.
Smack
And I
dab in
tell
the middle
that
of it.
story all the time on stage when I'm speaking about, and I think I asked that question because there's a lot of people right now who may be struggling in their business, and they're not thinking about, they're thinking about all the things that could go wrong. They're thinking about all the things that are happening. They're looking at their bank statements. They're seeing all the bills coming in, whatever it is, and they're feeling that overwhelm. And in that moment and in that time, thank God that we had you as a resource to remind us of who we truly were, so that we could stay connected to that, so that we could navigate through it. Because if we had gotten caught up in all the negativity and all the stuff that was happening to us, and we didn't realign to who we were and why we were successful at what we do, we would have probably gone under with both restaurants.
Yeah, with all the most restaurants. Right, exactly. And I think the beautiful thing is that you guys didn't have the ego that you had to do this all yourself and figure it out. There have been so many times, I still remember, you reached out, John reached out and said, hey, can we talk to you? Hey, can we talk to you? Hey, can we talk to you? And I think that is one of the most empowering things that people can learn from what you guys did, which is we're never alone. If we feel like we're alone, it's a choice of perception, because there's so many people out there already in your world that love you all enough to be there for you when the times are tough. And that's why human community, having a network, having people in you, having a family that's more than just blood, but just family, is so much more valuable. Because
And
life
especially
will
when it's
continue to
someone
happen.
like you or people in the business community. I mean, we say this all the time. It's like build your network, build your people that are, your go-tos for certain things, like whether it's your friend that's the guru in marketing or your friend that's the guru in social media, to just pick up the phone and be like, hey, I had a strategy question the other day, and I have a good friend who happens to be really good at like packaging offers. And she literally, I texted her, I said, hey, I'm fumbling with this a little bit. Can you? And she's like, hey, let's take an hour. Let's go. Let's knock it out. And it's like, you need to build that network, and you need to find your mentors. I mean, I don't know how many people, every book you read says, find a mentor, find a mentor,
Right.
find a coach, someone who's been doing the thing that you've been doing, and find someone like Wei who can help you tap in to, all of those things that the human op assessment will find for you. Because in the end, and I say this every time, if you're struggling in your business, get back to what you do best and let the other stuff just fall by the way. Just double down on what you do really, really well. Double down and stop. Let all the noise go on the periphery, and just go do you. And you will navigate the storm. And then when you come out of it, you can start to rebuild again. But just get back to basics and who you are. Stay in your authenticity. Stay in your gifts, and you will navigate through it. And that is just like at the bottom line, if you're in a business, that is my recommendation every time.
Yep. 100%. It's one of those things where it sometimes is counterintuitive, because when you're in survival mode, it's like, no, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. It's like, as long as it's in alignment with you. But if you start pulling yourself out of alignment, yeah, you might navigate yourself out of it, but then you're going to wake up one day and go, where am I? Why am I way over here, even though I'm not in that weird place back then anymore, but now I'm completely off course? Then you ask, was that worth it? Because now I got to work 5 times as hard to get back on course to where I want to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to get off course if we have your app, right?
Yeah. Nope. That's your North Star for now. And you just stay in alignment with that. Every season, just calibrate. So, yeah.
Yep. I love it. Well, we have the info on the app. How can people find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to find out more about what your company does, your workshops, all the things that you're working on? What do you want us to know?
Yeah, humanop.com is easy. We have a whole entire web ecosystem. I just completely overhauled our whole sitemap and everything, so it makes it super easy for people to understand what the heck we do. We have our HumanOp Nexus community, which now we've expanded to be hybrid, so both in person in Cupertino and also hybrid. So every Thursday night, we have a free workshop that people can either Zoom in or come into our office. It's called the Open Room, and it's exactly how I've ever wanted to be. There's no agenda. The people define what that is. It's an open mic dynamic. So you take your assessment, you come in, and then you just basically ask all the questions that will, if you get the answer, or rather when you get the answer, will give you the biggest lift in your world. And that's what you bring to the table, and that's what shapes the room. And so we do that every week, and I do a whole bunch of other things, but it's all on the website. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm more of an old school person. DM me, message me, and just start a conversation. It's like, that's always the best way.
I agree. I mean, as much as we love technology, I'm like a one-on-one. Let's connect. Let's get to know each other. Let's talk about it, and then let's build from there. So I love that way. I mean, you and I could probably do a whole nother hour together.
We could get Joe Rogan to run for his money on his podcast.
Seriously. I mean, I'm going to put our show up against Joe Rogan any day. But yeah, no, we could talk and talk and talk. But thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful to get to reconnect with you and share your wisdom with my audience. And I know that this is the first of many conversations, and I can't wait to come up to Cupertino and like give you a hug and just hang out and do all the fun stuff.
Absolutely. Anytime. And you just let me know. And then we have some collaboration to do as well. Now that we reconnected, timing's right. Let's go.
Let's go. I love it. All right. Thanks, Wei. And thank you so much for listening. And we will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this episode beneficial. And if you feel compelled to do so, share it with a friend who might benefit too. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Reach out to me anytime on my website at jenmentesana.com.